Oh, I'm so eeby. I'm so sleepy. Been tired today. What I need to do, it's the weather, I'm sure of it. My body is finally recovering after, as I said, every time major weather system goes over, every time a major pressure system goes over, I get extreme pain in my neck. And that's about the same time when I start recommending, hey, you should do this neck stretch for your lats, because it's exactly when I'm combating extreme neck pain. And I'm sure there are people all over the East Coast right now that are suffering from the same issues from the winter cyclone, which is just like, yeah, it's a really, like, the fact that the bariatric pressure that we're registering is off the charts is a little scary. That's very likely one of the contributing factors to Bishop Williamson's stroke is the storm Yoan that hit the British Isles. I don't know. My neck feels a lot better though. Oh, just had to do stretches. Well, hope everybody's doing good today. I gotta wake up. I'm gonna scream. Did you know the body can live on 4 hours of sleep? Gets knocked down by a strong wind. Hey, I got some advice. Here's some advice. I looked this up. I found this out. Here's what you gotta do. Okay, so you're making beans, right? You got the Goya beans in a can. They don't have the bunch of barbecue sauce crap on them because you're more intelligent than that. Or if you're even smarter, or if you have the money to spend, because it doesn't make you not smart to not have the money to spend, you buy dried beans and then you soak them. And you change the water out multiple times when you're soaking them, because if you drink the water of soaked, dried red kidney beans, you could give yourself some severe sickness because it's bad. And a little aside, I think one of the main reasons why modern Americans in the 90s onward are obsessed with meat is because of our immense allergen uh, plague? Is that the right word for it? I'm pretty sure our allergen plague is unlike anything else in history, where everybody's like hypersensitive to things that people have never been hypersensitive to all throughout history. And a lot of that has to do with the exposure to chemicals, just as there was thalidomide babies and conjoined twins that popped up a lot more after the Industrial Revolution. Now we're going into a real serious chemical revolution. It started happening in the 80s, where people can create whatever chemicals they want, and they can create them in mass, and whatever goes downstream of that has consequences. And I mean that both in a figurative and metaphorical sense. And a lot of people have extreme sensitivities, and they have allergies that they didn't have 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And they're popping up the more they're exposed to the various irritants and other chemicals that change our system in semi-fundamental ways. The extreme sort of mutations of things like thalidomide that happened is a sign that you can fundamentally mutate developmental processes with exposure to chemicals. And we're starting to get a little bit more into the ability, you see, the ability to talk about vaccines. You see, when my dad was in school, he got the smallpox vaccine. That's where they cut a slash in two slashes on two slashes. They cut this pound sign in your arm, and then they rub the smallpox vaccine in. One kid went out to get the smallpox vaccine, and he came back impossible to communicate with other people, completely and utterly improperly meshing brain functions, and he was perfectly normal when he went out for it. So here's the thing. You could hand wave that away as normal, but ultimately it is part and parcel of the fact that we are putting chemicals in things. Those chemicals have consequences. And in order to, well, prevent things like the little mind babies, we have to have the same sort of standards as Europe. And I'm glad Europe has these standards. I know for a fact Europe is intelligent enough to know why they have these standards, because they talk about them all the time and they look down on America all the time for not having them. So no matter how like batshit insane certain people in America are in regards to European politics and how they want to induce the same sort of extreme austerity and hell, let's just call it what it is, anarchy you see in Argentina, here and then overseas, all over the place. They might be able to succeed in London. And London already has anarchy, so it's already one foot in the grave. So you could end up inducing that sort of government only exists to shoot people that rich people don't like, sort of government that doesn't have any health regulations, that doesn't have any environmental regulations to prevent people from destroying the land that's under them, and the ones that can afford it can leave before the massive floods and the fires and the other natural disasters like earthquakes, tick up, and fracking comes forward. And with the death drive as it is, and with some cultures as they are, that's the point. That isn't just the consequence, that's the actual point. That's the thing that gives some people pep in their step in the morning. And you just gotta look out for that, because there's the eternal enemy that possesses people and makes them go against what's best for their posterity, for their genetics, as in their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And there's nothing that you can do about it other than try and make a better world with more standards. Like people say that if you want a strong border, you got to build a wall. Well, if you want strong health, you need to build a wall between your children or your pregnant women and poisons. It's as simple as that. Like, we're learning a whole lot about how fluoride affects the brain over a long period of time and how it lowers the IQ. And we're learning a whole lot about PFAS, and that's really good. And no matter how mimetic it is, and memes have really been ruined since soy jacks, I'm sorry. Like, it's not that soy jacks are useless, it's just they're all there is now. Legitimately, like the regular memes that we all grew up with, where, oh, that got a big laugh and that got a big attention out of it. How can it be maneuvered through time in a topical way to build a repertoire of rhetorical images? It's all just this template. It's all just the template of the soy jacks. And that's why I didn't like it from the beginning. It's bad for the it's bad for the brain. It's bad for the memory to have everything filtered through soy jacks. But most importantly, it destroyed meme culture, and meme culture was one of the fibers that held people's brains together and allowed them to think in a larger and more expanded way in order to share information, as was done on forums before meme culture exploded out of social media. And that's the main reason why, that's the only reason, in my opinion, why millennials are at all better than Gen X or the boomers. Which, to a varying degree, as I've said, a lot of my peers have killed themselves. I think the rate at which millennials kill themselves is probably the highest out of any of the 4 generations that are currently, like, really in play. And it is what it is, you know. The other monkeys learned from the monkey that ate the poisonous butterfly not to eat the poisonous butterfly, and sometimes you have to learn up the genetics, and hopefully you can pass down your knowledge. But with AI and social media and things as it is, it's going to be very, very hard. Now, we've gone way off on a tangent, but here's the important part. You got to drain your beans thoroughly, because beans have a defensive mechanism. People like eating meat because the defense mechanism is easily dealt with by the farmers, and they don't have to worry about it. But the defense mechanism of various plants, like beans, like rice, which has arsenic in it if you don't soak it, a variety of different things, but not things like broccoli and kale and blueberries, which have been cultivated for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years, to have no poisons, in fact being some of the least poisonous and most rejuvenating foods and things you could put in your body. And animals usually have various defenses, like deers can eat hemlock. You got to drain your beans, even if they come out of the can. You got to soak them, drain them, soak them, drain them until the water around them runs clear. Then you won't fart, you won't get gas, you'll get wonderful, wonderful protein and fiber, and you'll feel so much better. Whereas if you're lazy with it, you will get gas and you will be farting. I love dating girls that are taller than me and going, give uppies, me want uppies, uppies, uppies. Excuse me. Oh shit, I gotta drain my beans more. Anyways, yeah, tall girls are awesome. I've dated girls that are taller than me before, and some people like the concepts of a short stack girl because they, I guess, have some insecurity or something, or maybe that's just their thing. I'm not gonna hate on that, but the thing that you like can't date a woman, or you find a woman that's tall unattractive, is like the most batshit insane thing, in my opinion. Tall girls are real beautiful. I love girls with legs mile long, but as I said, I'm not dating right now. I'm not on the market. It's whatever. I'm sure that breaks so many women's hearts. Oh. I used to build fences, and let me tell you why vinyl is mandated in HOAs now. Why you can't see normal fences made out of wood in HOAs now. Because the police need to be able to drive a Stutz Bearcat through your fence at any time. And it's super funny that people join HOAs thinking that they're going to get some level of security and safety out of it, because that's actually your biggest that's your biggest threat in society, is the police as they're being built into paramilitary groups. LA, New York. Fuck, man, I wouldn't expect Florida to be going any different way, because the same people that ruined New York and LA flooded into my state as soon as DeSantis became governor and sold his soul to Israel. You know, they started training our police in 9/11, after 9/11, after the Patriot Act that ruined our Constitution and ruined our country, what was left of it anyways. And Israel started to swoop up all those opportunities and train all those impressionable men. And yeah, it's bad right now. It's real bad. Let me tell you, it ain't just black people. Like, anybody's and everybody is getting shot. Anybody and everybody is getting tortured. It's wild out there, man. Stay safe. But yeah, I miss building fences. Building fences is so fun. It feels great to build things. People who drive for work must be miserable. And you know what? I think a lot of them are, because they have just the worst politics. Whereas people who work hard and, you know, they're out in the sun, they're out in fresh air, hopefully, because sometimes you have a construction job that's like dog shit, like building buildings for the city. Like, fuck that, man. But doing things that's important, like maintenance and architectural work, that is awesome. And I bet those people have some of the best attitudes and politics in the world, or well, at least in my country anyways. My scope of politics isn't that wide. I know there's some freaks out in Europe who have some freaky ass politics. They'll call themselves centrist and be the most insane, like, batshit crazy people ever. But yeah, I don't know. Centrism's where it's at, I think. Just Europeans have like a very warped sense of politics. I think it has a lot to do with the philosophy that became the religion, like the state religion of Europe, was philosophy. Disgusting, nasty, contradictory philosophy that teaches people to be whatever they want and then to lie to themselves instead of maximizing what they are and how they grow. Because it would be an affront to their ego to accept something bigger than them. Outside of the government, of course. My worst memories are of times when I spammed cheap techniques to win. See, it wasn't about winning. It was about how you played the game. And I can see that pretty clearly now. And trust me, most of my tactics aren't cheap. They're fun. I love low-tier characters. I love doing the hard routes. I love pacifist runs. I love doing stuff like that. I love skilling, but whenever I decided to get stinky with it and start spamming cheap techniques to win, I don't remember that very fondly at all. It just goes to show, those Israelis that are constantly abusing and exploiting and cheating and stealing, they're not going to have good memories, and those memories will stretch into infinity. Guarantee you. Spectrum is a great internet provider, but it's their other services that are not linking up with it, getting all pissy. It's causing it to have all these issues, and I feel bad for the company that's worked so hard to do what they do, which is put good cords in the ground, set things up well, and then you have these bullshit Wi-Fi based, cloud based, app based, Tel Aviv coordinated shit that is just going haywire constantly and making people question the validity of the internet at all. And that's why AI is getting injected into everything, is because it's trying to drive people away from communication, away from coordination, away from intellectualization. And it's not going to be good for digging us out of this hole that we've got ourselves in. Speaking of which, before communism, there was the Mongol Empire. I only respect Mongols when it comes to communism, because they're the only ones that actually have any claim to sort of a revivalist movement. None of the Chinese. And that's exactly why it's mostly in the Yunnan region, up in the north. And all of the coast that is legitimately like China. That's not, Beijing is shifty. Beijing is confusing, but all of the coast, which is basically China, has almost no legitimate communism in it. And you probably find more diehard communists in France and Portland than anywhere on the coast of China. Their social credit score is dog shit. And it's the Mongols, really, that created the entire backbone, the skeleton. They founded most of the borders for where communism would truly reach and take hold. And that's why I said there might be a slight racial element towards it. But also, thinking about Spain and thinking about how Sephardic people have lived there and been granted the rank of Christian for a long period of time. And how, if you go back and you study, you'll find out that the Jews that converted to Christianity always viewed themselves as superior to the Gentiles that converted to Christianity, and it's patterned a little bit in the book. You always got to look out for those people that say, well, Christianity was good, but now we're going another step higher, and we're going to unify the entire world. Anti-nationalism dissolves borders, but so does hyper-nationalism. You need a nice balance, and that's why I said centrism, balance. That's the ultimate philosophy, that if that can be applied to politics, great. That's how you build. That's how you link and build and grow and gain. But anti-nationalism, Michel Foucault shit, that just says the entire world is one borderless mass of people, and it to have a capital of that, which ultimately does delegate whether or not, like Paris, whether or not that is true or false, would put so much power into the hands of those individuals to say what people who disagree with them and people who agree with them all collectively say together on paper. And hypernationalism is one super dense, hardcore group that doesn't view its own borders as good enough and instead wants to spread out parasitically. Once again, same problems. If you capital all of that, regardless of your attempts to race replace things, then it will end up being sloppy and collapsing, because the races of human beings have developed around the areas that they live in, not the culture and philosophy that they have. Genetics will change very quickly, and you'll just be left with the exact same thing. Ergo, there's no point. Only greed and parasitism, and that's how it's viewed. Words, connotations are not a democracy. They're subjective individual aspects. And for that matter is Rhetorical language was sheerly rhetorical. If it is repeated in spades, or is it consecration with veneer of plausible deniability? You see, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. And it's true that words are defined collectively. So the meaning of words can change depending on what the greater mass of people will say. But how they make you feel is entirely up to you. Both of those statements are entirely true, and they're the foundation of how language works. And if you repeat rhetorical imagery and language repetitively, you are saying prayers, and you're consecrating yourself to that, whether you think it's a funny little joke or not. So, I'm not gonna go deeper into that. That's a pretty well-wrapped point. The transactional nature of the relationships that we have grown accustomed to in the modern American world is peak banality of evil. Every holiday, every relationship, every interaction, every moment of tenderness is tendered by transactional thinking. And it's one of the ways that both men can become rapists and women can become gold diggers. And through that is a thorough crack of divorce and separation and rheumatism of your own body attacking itself. And that's not good, man. It's not good. Anyways, easily dated news segment time. Florida lawmakers are going over to Satan's head and ratcheting down on the extreme crime he's injected into the backyard, and I can already see things calming down a little bit. They're not going to listen to that piece of shit. He's the reason why there's so many issues here. And I could be entirely wrong on what these lawmakers intend to do, but it looks like, from my perspective, that they are disregarding the lame duck governor who has sold his soul to another country, and they're working on fixing the country in line with the president. And if the president decides to help them, fine. If he doesn't, that's probably not going to matter much, because they're probably going to get through the work that they need to get through anyways. I doubt DeSantis even understands how their jobs work. Like, the man is one of the most stupid politicians I've ever seen in my entire life. He's like, and it's wild that people like Fetterman and people like DeSantis are the biggest cheerleaders for Israel. It's wild to me that people, I mean, you already kind of see this trickling into people's perspective that, yeah, it is actually evil and tremendously destructive, while same time being banal and boring and uninspiring for anybody involved. But it might be too late. They might get contracts for all of our resources for the next 4 years. And there wouldn't have been any difference if Kamala Harris got in there. But the sheer cruelty and evil and stupidity and sycophantic and non-self-serving, non-culture serving, non-nation serving, but sheerly sycophantic to another nation and its people of Joe Biden leads me to believe that Israel has been heavily involved in our politics for 40 years, about the same time as Biden. That most of the anti-black racism that Biden has helped tender through the 90s with a lot of his bills have been Israel. And you know for a fact that the Patriot Act was also Israel getting extremely, extremely involved and invested in our politics. And the Masons that themselves are somewhat descended, partially descendant from the Kohanim caste of Carthaginian cultured temple builders. They're enormous cucks too. And Biden is the perfect paragon for the synthesis of these two societies, Zionism and Masonry. And that's that. Back to the easily dated news segment time. One of the South Americans Trump deported through a Roman coming off the plane. No coincidence, that's where most of the neo-Nazis are, and I think it's hilarious that Elon only really started acting like a goofy internet neo-Nazi after he spent a lot of time in Argentina. And that's, as I said, Chile has like the second most popular party is like an NSDAP type goofy, gaudy imitation party. Super funny. And yeah, that's your Nazis. I hope Elon in the next 4 years forces online internet neo-Nazis and Indians super close together. Excuse me, not Indians. Yeah. I hope that happens too. But just, the people that they hate in general, because neo-Nazis hate brown people in general, I hope Elon forces, with the jobs that they do, I hope he forces the neo-Nazis and the Indians and the South Americans together. And that would be beautiful irony. The same sort of irony is often tendered to the descendants of evil and the people who invest in horrific ways. You see, there are martyrs, but what martyrs do is they uplift thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people with their humiliation, their sacrifice, their pain. Jesus uplifted hundreds of billions of people with his sacrifice, with his pain, in the past and in the future. And you're never going to be able to beat that by just going around and shooting people. You're only going to amplify it because the sacrifice, the blood sacrifice, the human sacrifice has already taken place. And there's no reason for it anymore. Did you know that Australia charged Julian Assange like $600,000 for the flight home? That's crazy, right? I can only imagine how much various government planes end up costing the taxpayer when they're sent on political PR missions. Oh, hey, Pete Hegseth. He got confirmed. I've been saying this for a while. You see, I've been following Joni Ernst for a while, and she's kind of earned my respect over the years. I didn't know this until just recently, but she is a survivor of sexual assault. She's also a veteran. I've been on that. And Pete Hegseth, who did pop on a rape kit, who used GHB to rape that girl. Terrifying. He talked with Joni Ernst. He got grilled and interrogated by her. And he passed her bar. So that gives me a little bit of hope. I've been saying that for a while. And no, it is what it is. He's very likely going to get confirmed anyways, because he has the right enemies. But the fact that he submitted himself is a good sign of he's not going to make rape legal or whatever. Even though it is already legal in Fort Liberty, which is the new name for Fort Bragg. Like, that is just the biggest torture dungeon for poor Americans outside of any prison and our various black sites around the world. Guantanamo Bay isn't the only black sites. We got black sites in Romania. I'm sure we got black sites over in, Japan and shit. Probably, maybe. Maybe Japan said, no, stupid Americans, stay out of here. We learned 731, you're no good. Sorry, that was like Chinese. I apologize to the Japanese listeners there, but yeah, like, very likely that they're not investing in our Masonic bullshit anymore, but actually moving forward. They found out, real science doesn't come from insane alchemists torturing and killing people. It actually just comes from intelligence and a good, strong school, which is the reason why our schools have been under attack and warped and destroyed for so long. See, originally the schools were semi-esoteric training grounds for soldiers to be indoctrinated into a certainly written history of the new religion of the state. It was founded by Prussian Masons, and That's where it comes from, to train 1,000,000 soldiers. But we see school can be applied as a tool for uplifting the population of people living in a certain nation.
Did you know Spielberg is the biggest, best director ever? And if you cross him, you'll never work in this town again.
Fuck that, man. Oh, all that shit can fucking die in a fire. Bollywood is way better than Hollywood. I really, really like Bollywood. It's super funny. You see them like flying off of motorcycles, obvious huge cuts, and then they just break out into dance. Going back to the Cohenines, the root of all evil is saying we build the house of God, not you. That is like a taproot of all evil. Deep, deep root for all evil throughout time, throughout the world, is saying that we build the house of God, not you. You know? Hidetaka Miyazaki, the creator of Dark Souls, has given us an entire generation of amazing video games. I just realized that, from Demon Souls to Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, and, you know, the easily accessible and much, much different Elden Ring, which has George R.R. Martin, one of the lamest writers of all time, writing, which he's just passing off shit I've read on Wikipedia, and it's not deep or cool or esoteric or interesting or anything like that. It's just neo-pagan revivalism, and it's just like, you can know your history and not be a dumbass, right? I guess not. Anyways, I'm gonna go ep.50. I'm Sleep G. Alright. Peace out.